I don't think anybody in the United States has an excuse for being broke. I don't really care where you're from, where you're starting at, what your situation is.
So what are the dangers of wealth?
I think it's addicting.
What is your advice to somebody who's maybe in your shoes, 10 years ago? Flip houses, start a business, social media star. If you had to pick one of those three, would you? Why?
Yeah.
When's enough, Ryan? When's enough? Like, why do you have to keep building more?
Yeah.
Why not just stop?
When I see people talk about their financial freedom numbers and stuff, and they're like, oh, I need to make this amount of money, then I'll be financially free and I'll be good. For one, once you hit it, you realize you're like, okay, like what's next? This isn't enough. When you factor in inflation, you're like, okay, this is not enough, right? But two, the thing that happens is like, just that mindset, like how selfish is it that you're like, oh yeah, I'm good, so I don't need to work anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that is like the most selfish thing you could say. And it's like, dude, if God gave me the ability to go create businesses and create jobs and to build wealth, and I can now go give it to other people, I would be acting in disobedience doing anything otherwise. I become a huge golfer. I love golf now. And I think about it a lot because I'm like, dude, just like this fantasy, it won't happen. I'm like, what if I went back into pro sports and I just went hard at golf, right? And I'm like, what if, like, I know what it takes to play pro sports. I'm not a dummy. So what if I just practiced for 8 hours a day? I gave it all up and I just pursued the dream. And I'm just like, I go back to it. I'm like, how selfish. Like God gave me this position and these skills and these talents, and I'm going to go pursue some selfish thing for no reason. Yeah. It's literally a hobby that I want to like make a bigger hobby. And we see people that do that all the time, right? Like, it's not drugs and alcohol and sex and all these things that screw people up. Like that stuff does screw people up, but it's also the addiction to hobbies and entertainment. Like, dude, if you watch Netflix for 4 hours a day, what are you doing with your talents? Yeah. You play golf with the boys, whatever, like you're the retired guy who plays golf every day and that's all you do. Like what a waste of like living your life.
Yeah. And the key is there, what you said too, or a big piece of this is you still have a lifestyle with your kids, with your family, with your wife. So it's not like, I think people have this idea, and this comes from just limited mindset and maybe Hollywood movies, is rich means you work 100 hours a week and you're a jerk to your family. Yeah. And so when they see a guy like you who has money or me who have money and they're like, oh, well, why would you abandon your family like that to go make money? And it's like, no, I'm going home for dinner in a little bit. Like I'm gonna I'm gonna go hang out with my wife and kids tonight at a show in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
So if I was doing those things, and if you were doing those things, I think I have a good reason to ask you, as a brother, be like, Ryan, what are you doing, man? Like, you haven't talked to your kids in 6 weeks. Like, you need to work on this. But if you're still able to maintain that, just people can't understand that. They think if you make $1 million a year, versus somebody who makes 100,000, you are working 10 times more hours than the person making 100,000, right? Like, but our work is not linear like that.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think once you, I don't want to say I've mastered business, but you reach a level where you realize like, oh man, I can put this amount of work into it and it gets outsized returns because of the systems and funnels and processes that we've built. And so I spend a lot of my time, like I actually work less hours now, but make more money. Yep. And it's not that like I'm lazy. It's just that like I understand like the important things I need to do. And also like I said, dude, I'm not against golf. I'm not against Netflix. I'm not against any of this stuff. It's just like everything needs basically balance. And so like when people start to live this unbalanced lifestyle where it's very top heavy into one thing, then it causes destruction in other things. It just is what it is. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yep. You can't just spend 16 hours a day working. Like the hours don't come from anywhere. Like you're going to take it from something else.
That is very true. So what are the dangers of wealth, financial wealth? We'll talk about that. What if people are not careful? Are there downsides?
I think it's addicting, right? I think making money can become an addiction like any other addiction, right? So, with addiction, it just goes back to it's destroying other aspects of your life. And so if it becomes addictive to starting businesses and the thrill, it's going to... So like one thing I think about, a recent example would be a guy like Tom Brady. And I don't know the ins and outs of his marriage or anything like that, but basically from what it looks like, he had done everything in football.
Yep.
And he had made some kind of deal with his family that he was done, and then he wasn't. And then he got a divorce. And then, it's like, when's enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, and for him, he's like, well, I don't feel like I'm done. I want to keep playing. And if you don't support me, then you're a bad wife.
We're done. Yeah.
Right? But it's like, I don't know. She supported you for like 25 years. You've been in the NFL for like 25 years now. Like, so at what point does it not become about you?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the Bible, it's clear to lead on the addiction thing. Like there's that whole section in there about you can't serve two masters, right?
Yep.
God and money. It's like, take your pick. Who are you going to serve? And so when things become that addiction, then that becomes the master, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. Once you get addicted to a thing, that becomes your master, and you can't serve God and another master at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that this is the thing, right? I mean, we're both Christians, so it's easy for us to understand, but it's hard for a lot of people to understand. But like when you have God directing your path, you have a higher authority, not yourself, because most people consider themselves the highest authority. And so subjectively, as a flawed human, if I feel like I should be doing this and you disagree with me, there's no higher authority to say that I am wrong or anything, right? Yeah. So like when my wife and I have a disagreement, it's never, well, sometimes it's subjective, but if it gets too subjective, we at least have an objective higher authority at which we can say, hey, what does God say about this? What does the Bible say about this? And it'll become very clear, who's in the wrong. We might both be in the wrong. We might be acting with pride or ego and, whatever, right? We both might be being selfish. So it just kind of clarifies things. Whereas other marriages, when they don't have that, and you have two subjective people who have different beliefs, that's why there's a lot of drama. But I forgot what the leading question was to that.
I think, I don't remember. What was the question? I don't remember. It was basically
start with God and money.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say. So like with not serving two masters, if I am having a problem with, man, should I spend some extra? Because you can make an argument for anything you want, sure, right? So it's like, I have made this argument. I'm like, babe. She's like, you seem like you're working a lot. You're on these calls at the house. You're not present with the kids. You're on your phone. And I'm like, well, babe, we're starting this new thing. It's going to help a lot of people. And like, I got to do this for everyone. And so like on sometimes she's like, all right, like as long as it's not like a ongoing thing that's going to just be like a new habit, right? If it's a season, the business is struggling, we got to bear down. She understands that. But the moment things become like habitual, becomes the problem. And so like, I have to lean on God for discernment of, man, I got to check my heart. Like, am I really doing this for the right reasons? Am I spending enough time with my kids and my wife, but am I also still serving beyond just because like there's the other side too, where it's like, hey, I'm not helping anyone else because I'm just only with my family. That's also not good.
Yep.
So it's like, it's tough.
Yeah. It's a tough balance to try to figure out where to land on that. But, I'm always, it's one thing I'm always concerned and I'm always analyzing is where am I right now with when it becomes the ambition to build wealth and businesses.
Yep.
And then am I being a good husband and father? And it's hard to be good at both of those.
Very hard.
Yeah. So like trying to balance. And I think the answer, the book, The One Thing from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, there's a great quote in there that I'll probably butcher here, but he basically says, there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's work-life balancing. It's a verb. So as long as we're constantly, rebalancing all the time, like you're walking on a tightrope and you're left to right, like you're always balancing, you're okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's when you stop asking these questions.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like, I'll tell you at the end of 2022, right? We all went into turmoil in real estate. So my balance went way over in the scale of like, okay, I got to work and like, get some crap done. And I'm like, babe, this just is what it is.
Yeah. The enemies are at the gate. I got to go.
And she's like, I get it. Right. And then there are times where I've been like we just kill it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going into vacation mode. I'm chilling and whatever. Right. And then like the business side be like, hey bro, like you're kind of neglecting us. Like we need you to get back to center. And so, yeah, it's always this thing.
Entrepreneurs, if you want to grow your business, there is no better investment than your own personal brand. The smartest thing I ever did was start creating content and investing into my brand. Ever since then, we've been able to triple our business. I've been able to raise more money than ever to continue buying more real estate. And it's all because I create content just like this. Now, a lot of people have asked me, Ryan, how am I supposed to do it? I don't know where to start. I don't know who's going to edit it. I don't know even what kind of setup or camera or anything to do. Well, here's the thing. We can help you with all of that at Pineda Media. We have a podcast checklist that you can actually get for free at pinedamedia.com that's going to go over everything you need on starting a podcast. But to make matters even better, we'll actually edit your podcast for you. We'll repurpose it into short form clips like you see on my Instagram and my TikTok so that people will start seeing those clips and watching your podcast and in turn being customers or investors in your business. So if you want the one-stop solution where you can get everything done for you, plus get the education you need to grow your personal brand, then you need to go to pinedamedia.com and book a free call with our team. You can also go get that free podcast checklist and that training program absolutely free by just going there. So go check it out.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about, still on the wealth topic of financial wealth. And this is something, again, I struggle with very much, is how do you decide to spend money on something like a new house? Like you're buying a new house right now, right? And I have 2 houses, right?
Yep.
I got nice cars. I got nice stuff. How do you decide?
Except nice watch.
Except not just an average watch, just an Apple Watch. You know how much? Do you know? Actually, true story. I'm gonna get back to the question. Do you know why I bought this?
Why?
Because it has a cellular built into it, so I don't have to take my phone. It was a how to be a better husband, father goal for me. So I can leave my phone at home and not take it in the house, and I have to communicate entirely off of this a lot of the times. Now I'm not great at it.
So a lot of times you'll just ignore it. You're like, this ain't worth it.
Yeah, I'm like, if I got a text again, it got my words wrong, I'm like, I'll deal with it another time.
Yeah.
And so this actually was designed to take me away from screen time. Now, has it worked? On and off.
You just traded screen time.
Now I just do 2 things, and I'm always walking around talking to my wrist. Anyway, that was a goal of mine. I said a couple years ago was how can I be off my screen time entirely? And so anyway, going back to the original question. So there's cool things that we buy, and then we talked about on your show earlier. If I can save someone's life for $1,000 in Africa who's dying of starvation, and I know $1,000 will save a child.
Yeah.
How do we as Christians? We can't obviously donate 100% of our money and give it away. And then there's an image, that sounds weird, but an image to keep up. There's like, we're on social media. It has, so how do you balance all those things in terms of giving, in terms of charity, in terms of luxury and enjoyment?
Yeah, great question. So there's so many thoughts with this, but I think the quick answer is what I just said earlier about like when you have God helping give you discernment, it basically, that just becomes part of it, right? Should I be living in this kind of house? Should I have this kind of car, right? And so it's going to be different for everyone, right? And like people on social media could look at lifestyle and be like, oh, well, dude, this guy we were talking my show, $50K a month, $80K a month, right?
Yep.
But what if you make $1 million a month?
Yeah.
You're spending 5% of your income. Is that better than the person who spends 80, 90% of their income? Because that's what normal Americans do. They live off of 80 if they're lucky, right? So who's actually, when you start looking at it from what the Bible says, like too, with the tithe, it's like the tithe is a percentage-based thing. It has no like hard absolute numbers, just 10% is 10%. So I think, how much you spend definitely is correlated with that number and how much you're making. If you're making $10 million a month, it doesn't matter, right? I'm not there yet, but if I start getting cool stuff because like I'm making such crazy money, it's not that I'm just only buying cool stuff. Now, I think the problem becomes if you're a Christian that you're making all this money, but you're just spending it all.
Yeah.
That's a problem for sure. So I think the percentage of your income that you live off of is something that you should strive to lower as you build more wealth. Now you can do that by either keeping your living expenses the same and increasing your income, or, you cut cost and whatever, right? You can go the Dave Ramsey approach, whatever your case is. So, for me, I look at that as one thing. The other thing is, to your point, to me, it's like lifestyle is marketing. You're marketing your lifestyle and everything else. And so if I'm doing cool stuff, it's like, it costs money, but will it actually bring in money and attract people who want that kind of lifestyle? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
You know, if I were to tell you, you know, I got 50 million views just from my watch videos. You know, the watches cost 100 grand. I made more than 100 grand off 50 million views.
Yeah.
So like, should I buy more watches? Marketing wise, yeah, I should. I don't, because like I'm good. Like I never bought watches for the marketing purpose. I bought them because I wanted them.
Yep.
But like marketing wise, I really should buy more watches.
That's funny. Is that what your most popular videos are? They watch ones? Really?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I've gotten literally like 50 million views from watches. It's crazy.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Do those go up in value generally too, right? I mean, those are investments or not right at all?
Yeah, they are too. And I'm not even, even if it went to zero and like I got 50 million views for 100 grand,
for sure.
I'd be like, yeah, that was good. That definitely made me more than 100 grand. But yeah, like I could go sell this today for at least what I bought it for. Yeah. So it is like a store of value.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like spending money on things like that's why I have 2 houses. Like I don't feel guilty or bad about having 2 multi-million-dollar houses. Yeah, because I will sell it almost guaranteed for more than I bought it for, because I have really good debt. I'm not worried about it. I can hold it forever. I can rent it if I have to. It will be worth more. And someday all my money goes to a combination of kids and charity, mostly charity.
Well, I'll tell you one thing too. Like, so we were talking about new houses. I mentioned on mine, like my mortgage is 20 grand, which I would have never in a million years thought I would have a $20,000 mortgage. I remember our first mortgage was like 1,200. Yep. I was like, dude, I don't know if we can, this is a lot of money. And then, you know, our mortgage became, you know, like 2,000, and then it was 4,000. And then now we just jumped to 20. And I was like, it didn't, for me, I'm just like, whatever, that is what it is. You want a $3 million loan? Cost you $20,000 a month. Yep. But like, I think about it, and I think about, you know, we've been living there now for 4 months. All the parties we've had, you know, bringing people over. And like one thing my wife talks about too, and she and I both grew up very frugal, is like, man, if we can provide experience for people that like they just never otherwise would have gotten, man, like what a blessing we can be to other people. Yeah. And so whether it's vacations, whether it's doing the cool, you know, dinners, whether it's, you know, house parties, whether it's, you know, like my daughter, literally, she's 3 years old. She's had the most ridiculous birthday parties in the entire world.
I've seen pictures there.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Like I look at them and I'm like, she has a Sweet 16 every year. Like it's crazy.
It reminded me of the scene from, was it the movie with Will Ferrell? Was it Old School, where Vince Vaughn has like the big birthday party with like the pony rides? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's like that's your style.
That's for sure what we do.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. My son had a circus. It was nuts. And so like these parties are like 5-figure parties for 2-year-olds who don't remember. And I'm like, babe.
But you remember.
But my wife, obviously she remembers and for memories, but she's like, look how many kids are here, like never have experienced anything like this. And I'm like, it's true. You know, it's not really about us. Yeah. Well, maybe it's about my wife. I'm just here like funding it.
Yeah, that's fine. Where'd you meet your wife?
On a canoeing trip.
No way.
Yeah. Super random. So I got drafted by the Oakland A's. I went to a school called Cal State Northridge, and I came back to Vegas to live here because I'm like, I'm not going to live in LA. It's where Northridge is. And I took a year off because I was training and wanted to really hone in on my professional baseball career. But after year one, I was like, you know what? I might as well go back to school. I only got a semester. Like, let me go see if they'll let me go to UNLV for 1 semester. So I got them to approve my classes. It took like I needed 16 credits. And so I basically needed 1 elective, 5 classes, 1 elective. So I started looking, and I'm like, wonder what like the easiest elective is. And there was one for rock climbing. I was like, oh, this will be tight. So I signed up for rock climbing. A week before the school starts, they go, hey, we didn't have enough signups for rock climbing. It's canceled. I was like, dang, so what am I going to sign up for? And I start looking down the list, and they're like, well, we got like a couple spots left for this canoeing trip. And I was like, okay, so what do we do? And they're like, you canoe to the Hoover Dam, you camp out for 2 nights, and you get a credit after a weekend. I was like, I don't have to go for a weekend to get a credit? Cool. Tight. So I sign up for it. There's like 8 of us. And, I see this cute girl, on orientation. I'm like, this canoeing trip's going to be tight. Like, I'm glad I signed up for this. This is cool. So, we ended up doing the canoeing trip and it was great. And actually it wasn't great. I was just being a cocky, like 22-year-old who was a professional baseball player thinking I was the man. And she got super turned off by it because she was like, this guy's cute, but he's just a jerk. And I was like, whatever. So, also during that trip, I ended up saving her life. She disputes this, but the canoe,
but you're right.
But it did happen. She's still here. So the canoe flipped during the river. Her canoe, like, I don't know how she flipped it. She flipped it. And like, dude, the river is strong. Like, it's super strong. And so she was like floating away. Her canoe's gone. All our other canoes were already like docked. And we were the only ones left. I was like, oh crap. So I'm canoeing, freaking me and my partner are canoeing. Then we grab her and her partner and then like we get them to shore. So that's like the story. That's the uneventful story of how I saved her life. But
you're a hero, man.
I am.
You're a hero.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you are trying to grow your real estate investing business, then you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. If you have no idea what Wealthy Investor is, it is our coaching program and community. We have helped thousands of students worldwide grow their business. Now, it doesn't matter if you're just getting started and you're trying to get that first deal. We can help you do that. If you're trying to scale your business and go from a few deals a year to a few deals a month or even 7 figures a year, we can help you do that too. In fact, last year alone, we had over 30 students do over $1 million in revenue. And I'd love for you to be the next one. So it's pretty simple. If you're trying to grow your business and wholesale more homes or flip more homes or buy more rental properties, then you need to go to wealthyinvestor.com and book a free call with our team. It's super simple. We'll go on a strategy call with you and figure out how we can help you grow according to your needs. So all you got to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com, book the free call with the team, and we'll see you there.
So anyways, even after saving her life, she didn't want anything to do with me. And I ended up messaging her like a month later on Facebook. And I was like, hey, we should like go hang out. It's your birthday's coming up. Like I saw it was her birthday. And so we went on our first date on her birthday to lunch at Olive Garden. It was fancy. And, it was good. But to tie up that story, the reason I talked about the rock climbing was, after we got together, she told me that she's like, yeah, it's crazy because we almost would have never met. And I go, why? She goes, because I signed up for a class that got canceled. I go, what'd you sign up for? She's like, rock climbing.
Oh, funny.
I was like, whoa, I guess we're going to get married. That just is what it is.
Okay. I got a quick Olive Garden story about my wife real quick.
I love Olive Garden.
Yeah. Olive Garden is great, but I did not always like Olive Garden. So early on, I thought, okay, I was raised very like lower middle class. Like the only restaurant we could ever afford was McDonald's. That was it.
Really?
So Olive Garden was the nicest restaurant I'd ever heard of. Like it was the 5-star restaurant of the world. And I would never go there because I hated rich people. I hated popular kids in school. And I hated the rich kids. And so I went to college. And my wife and a bunch of friends were like, well, I had just met her, but they're like, let's all go to Olive Garden. And I was like, I don't eat at Olive Garden. I was like, I won't eat there. And it was like against my principle to eat at such a fine 5-star establishment.
Yep.
And so I went and I refused. I held a protest and I ate the breadsticks for free. And that was it. I sat there and ate breadsticks and I refused to get any food because I would not eat at such a nice place. And I was ticked at Heather that she would eat at such a fancy restaurant. I was like, she is a snobby rich kid from Seattle. And
Seattle
it
kids.
Totally turned me off. Yeah, snobby rich kids. Now I realize, first of all, it's Olive Garden. And 2, she's like a farmer's daughter. Like they were not wealthy in any way. And she was just smarter than me.
She just knew Olive Garden.
Olive Garden was not the caveat door experience.
What's funny, the caveat door. What's funny is my wife actually rejected me on the first attempt. So I DM'd her on Facebook. Oh, nice. Yeah, I DM'd her on Facebook and I was like, hey, your birthday's coming up. I'd love to take you out for your birthday. And she's like, I think she just basically said no. I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. I have to, like the Facebook messages are still there. I gotta look, but she basically said no, and I was like, well, all right, that settles that. I guess that ship has sailed. And then like 2 days later, she DMs me back and she's like, you know what? If you still want to go, like I'll do it. And then now I tell the story at all of our events. I'm like, she came crawling back. Like, that's just how it went.
That's how I saw it too. That was great. That was great, man. All right, question. What do you love about your wife?
Oh man, dude, this is definitely like a podcast about, a better life. It's not business. I will say, there's so many things, and I'm not stalling. I'm just trying to prioritize all of the amazing things I want to say because I don't have enough time, obviously. So the first is keep this on a clip. The first would be I'll actually go in like timeline sequence of what attracted me throughout the 10 years of marriage, right? So when we first started dating, obviously looks, right? That's number one when you're first looking for a mate. But the first thing that really attracted me was her confidence. She was super confident about who she was, what she was doing, the way she talked. She wasn't one of these girls that needed to be like told every day, like, oh, you're so pretty. Like, and then if you don't, like, they're insecure. Like, I didn't have to worry about any insecurity with, she was great on that front. So that was like the number one thing starting out. After we got married, obviously too, with that, her love of Jesus. So I always knew like I was never going to date a girl that wasn't Christian. So like, she had that. So then we get married and, obviously we're a super young married couple. She had just turned 21 and, we're figuring everything out. But, the next thing that really stuck out to me was like, she just believed in me, whatever. I was like, hey babe, I want to flip couches. She's like, okay. I'm like, hey, I'm going to keep playing minor league baseball for no money. She's like, all right, cool. I'm like, hey, I'm going to max out our credit cards and flip a house. She's like, I'm down.
Let's go.
So she's always supported any crazy thing I've ever wanted to do. I've never been told no, right? On just like these ideas. She's never discouraged me or been like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, have you thought about this? Because I do see a lot of wives do that. They're like, a lot of stuff gets stopped because they just don't believe in them or they're scared or whatever, right? So I'm super grateful that she's always supported what I wanted to do. And along with support too, just like the trust and respect. So it's like, obviously she supported me, but she also trusted that it was a good decision. She respected me. And even when things, didn't go right, there was never like, I told you this wouldn't work. Why'd you do that? You lost money. It was never about that. So, that all kind of plays together. As we got older and as we had kids and everything else, the next thing that really like started to stick out to me is like, man, dude, she is so good at serving. Like she has that whole servant heart to serve me, the kids. She gave up her career. Whatever the family needed, she was willing to do. Right. So, servant, everything. And then today, as we celebrate 10 years of marriage, we both have grown as people. We both have changed a lot. We're expecting our third here in like a month.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So, we're going to have a family of 3 now. And I think that she has become very like entrepreneurial and like leader. And, maybe it's just from all the years before she was never like that. Right. And so now she's like, yeah, I want to help with Wealthy Kingdom. Like, I want to lead the women, I want to do all these different things. And I'm not telling her to do it. It's like, it's now becoming the next stage of who she's becoming. So yeah, we've had a lot, but hopefully that doesn't get me in the doghouse.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
I love that. And then also, what about your kids? If you don't mind talking about them, like, what do you love about your kids? Each of them.
Man, kids, dude, are a handful.
No, not at all.
Bro, so let me tell you this, okay? I love being a dad, and I never realized so many things about my dad until I've been a dad, right? And you don't realize like how much of an impact like your dad has on your life, especially as a man. And I remember my dad used to always tell me this story about him growing up. He had 12 brothers and sisters. And so he grew up in the Philippines. And his dad, he saw him once a year at the beginning of school. His dad was like some big entrepreneur in the Philippines who was making a ton of money, lost it all. And, whatever, all his kids left him, moved to Las Vegas. And, he ended up moving to Vegas too and reconciling as time went on. But I just remember my dad telling me like, dude, I saw my dad literally once a year. And it was at the start of school. He would take him to go buy new clothes and shoes and stuff. And like, that was it. And so like the housekeepers and stuff raised him. And he would tell me, he was like, Ryan, I never like want that to happen to you. Like, I'm going to be here for you with everything. And so he did exactly that. I mean, he figured out how to provide, took me to every baseball practice, got me every coach I needed, supported me on everything I ever wanted to do. And even to this day, he actually works for me as a project manager.
That's cool.
And he doesn't have to. Like, you know, we take care of them. Like, we bought them a house and cars and everything they need. They could, but he just wants to support some way, somehow. So, when I think about the wealthy way, I did not realize like the influence my dad had on it, because he was the perfect example of a child neglected by their dad. And, you know, he broke the chains and changed that with me. And so when I had kids, you know, I knew like I was going to not be like what I saw other entrepreneurs doing, but I also had such a rough experience with my son, James. So, you know, to go a little deep in the story, 2019, my son was born in January, 2 months premature. And, you know, it was crazy because my wife she started feeling pain. She's like, I think I need to go to the doctor. We didn't think she was like going into labor or anything. Yeah. We were just like, all right. We go in the doctor. He's like, dude, you know, she's having contractions. She's at this dilation. I honestly didn't even know what that meant. I was just like, okay, so like, when do we get to go home? Like, what's the deal? And he's like, yeah, she's staying here, bud. And I'm like, okay, so how's the baby? Like, the baby's going to be coming, but we're going to try and slow it down. And I was like, the baby's coming? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I mean, the baby's not supposed to come for like 2.5 more months. Like, is it going to be okay? We didn't know the gender or anything. He's like, I can't say. Like, I don't know. I was like, wow, okay. So baby gets born, James, you know, like 5 hours later. It was crazy. It was like literally the craziest day of my life, because we were just chilling. and then I had a kid 5 hours later. I was like, what the heck? Dude, we had no room set up. We had nothing. I had these books too. Like, I was planning to read. I was like, yeah, I'm going to read these dad books and stuff. Dude, and he was just born. And so he couldn't breathe. He couldn't eat. He couldn't do anything. And so he was in the NICU for 2 months. And so every day for 2 months, I had to go to the NICU in the morning, go to the NICU at night. He wasn't making any progress. It was just like this crazy thing. And they told us, they were like, he's going to have developmental delays. He's going to have, you know, potentially other issues. And I was like, all right. So anyways, after 2 months, we get to take him home. We're super scared because he couldn't breathe. And so I'm like, what if he stops breathing like while we're sleeping? Like, this is crazy. I don't even think he's good enough to come home. Like, I'm kind of scared bringing him home. And, you know, sure enough, God was watching over him. But, you know, we bring him home and, you know, he has to go through all these therapies because he's so delayed and still having lots of issues. And, you know, cutest, sweetest little boy, everything. Well, towards the end of the year, actually like a week before Christmas, he falls and hits his head and he gets this big bump. And we're like, well, that doesn't look good. Let's take him to the hospital. So we take him to the hospital. They tell us like, hey, you know, he's acting normal, right? And I'm like, yeah, but he's got this fat bump. Like, that doesn't look good. And they're like, yeah, just monitor it. He should be okay. I'm like, all right. Well, a couple of days later, I'm like, dude, he's not all right. Like, the bump's not going down. Let's take him to a different hospital. So we go to a different hospital. They're like, yeah, let's get him in for an x-ray right now. Like, they should have gave him an x-ray when we did that. So they go there and they're like, dude, he's cracked his skull. His brain is bleeding and we have to go in emergency surgery right now. Dang. I was like, okay. Like, so he's going to have brain surgery and, you know, that's what's going to happen. And I was like, okay, well, once again, it's like deja vu. I was like, what's the odds of survival? Like, this is as serious as it gets. And like, we can't say. So, it was at night, we're praying, they bring in this brain surgeon from somewhere, and, they have the surgery, and we're just praying all night, and, they tell us it was successful, and, all that stuff. And, literally he was just like super happy, like nothing had ever happened. And then, they actually released him on Christmas. And so we got to bring him home for Christmas. Also during that time, my wife was pregnant. And so, dude, let me just, like, kids have been a world. That was my first year as a parent.
Yeah.
And so to go through everything that I had to go through that year, plus that, like I said, so many things for the wealthy way came from that year, because I started to take Wednesdays off, and I called them work from home Wednesdays so I could support her and, help with the kids, and, well, one kid at the time. And then, it's just like 2019 was hell. And, we go into 2020, and then COVID hits, and I had like 50 flips and like all this stuff, and my wife's pregnant. I'm just like, man, dude, this is whatever. We're going to see how it goes. So yeah, kids have been a crazy thing. My daughter ended up being born during COVID, and she was actually a month premature, which was still like, we're like, well, that's better than 2.
Better.
And we're like, I guess we're going to be in the NICU for another month. But thankfully, I guess girls develop faster. So she didn't have to spend any time in the NICU. And so like our prayer for this third baby has been like, just stay in, like, do not come out.
Yeah.
And so, we're 2 months, actually month and a half away. So like, we're doing good. We're like super hyped. But my son now, he's 4.5 years old now. He definitely has special needs and development delays. And so he's still in therapies. We're constantly like trying things and looking for answers. We've done stem cells with him. We've done other things. But I mean, despite all that, the happiest kid ever, just loves to be outside and hang out. It's amazing. But raising him is like raising 4 kids in one. And so we're like, another kid's nothing, you know? And then my daughter, completely normal, and she's actually very advanced, and she's just a lunatic, and she's like me in very many ways. And so she's amazing. So yeah, dude, I've had a very crazy experience with kids in a short amount of time. And like I said, I think that's what has influenced the wealthy way so much, is because like, I know what it's like to almost lose a kid twice. And, once you've like gone through it mentally, where you're like, wow, like he could be gone. You experienced it to the closest at which you could experience it. And it changes your mindset, because once he was back, I was like, oh dude, I'm not missing any more moments. Like work is just not worth it. It's not. And so, yeah.
How has being a parent changed, if it has, your relationship with God?
I think the big thing with kids that's changed is, up until this point, I've had a decision on everything I've done. I got to decide who I married. I got to decide if I want to start a business, if I want to hire somebody, fire somebody, whatever, right? With kids, you kind of get to decide. But once you have the kid, you don't know how they're going to be.
Yeah.
You don't know how they're going to turn out. You don't know what choices they're going to make. That's complete. Like, obviously I can do my very best to love them and create a great environment, but they're still going to do what they want to do. And that's kind of like the crazy, scary thing where you're like, wow, this is completely out of my control, but like, this is my kid.
Yeah.
No matter what. And there's nothing that will ever change that. And so I have to, do the very best to make them like a model citizen, So that's a weird thing of like, man, dude, I'm like, I don't really have control on this. But I'll say like, it's also, made me think a lot about, God and Jesus being his son. And, you think about the sacrifice Jesus made for us, and God planned all that, allowed it to happen. I'm like, man, dude, the fact that he was willing to do that for us is crazy. Cause like, could I do that with one of my kids? Probably not. Like, it's crazy. So I think it puts more things in perspective of like, God the Father, and I'm a father now.
Yeah, I feel like as a dad, once I became a dad, I feel like I could understand just a little bit more of what God feels like. You know, when we talk about like, how can God like love everyone? Like, well, I love all my kids. Like, I love my kids, even when they're terrible people. Like yesterday, Wilder was a terrible human. In every way you can be a terrible human, he was a terrible human. He would have, if he had a gun, he would have shot somebody. Just like he was murderous. And I'm like, but I still love him with everything in here, right? And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Or little things like, you know, when I was younger, I used to like beg God for answers to things like, what college do I go to? Or what career do I get? And then now I'm like, well, if Rosie was like, Dad, what yogurt do I eat from the fridge? I'd be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
What one do you want to eat? Like all of a sudden I realized like, oh wait, what if God just wants us sometimes to do what, you know, what we want, like in a large way. Like, I go to this vacation spot or this one. What if he's like, well, what do you want to do?
He's like,
well, what, like
whatever.
Yeah. I think the Jonah situations are a lot more rare of like, God's like, no, you will go to this college and you will take this class because I have a plan for you. I think that's probably pretty rare. And I think being a father has taught me that. That's my,
no, I love that perspective.
Theory.
I think, I haven't thought about it like that, but I have thought about it like this kid has got me to like the end. But yeah, I still love him. Like there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And nothing he does will change that.
Yeah.
And versus people in this office or wherever, if they piss me off, it's like, hey, I don't have to continue to have you here. Like you're out.
All right. Before we begin to start wrapping up, I want to ask you some advice questions for people listening to help them out.
Okay.
As somebody who's built multiple businesses,
Yep.
And you have the wealth that most people want. And we're talking again financial wealth here. Like they want to own a business, cash flow, whatever that thing is. What is your advice to somebody who's maybe in your shoes? 10 years ago, maybe not pro baseball player, but they're broke.
Yeah, that was broke.
What do they do?
Man, I think so. The tools that we had 10 years ago were very different than today.
Sure.
So it's like, dude, literally 10 years ago, it's like Bigger Pockets podcast was out there. That's kind of it. Like there was no YouTube videos of me telling people how to flip couches or do this or do that. And so I just kind of fell into real estate because it was the only thing I could figure out that could make money. It's not like I loved real estate by any means. I was just like, oh yeah, I can make money doing this. Cool. So to that end, I mean, I know a lot more now and resources are way more available today. So I don't think anybody in the United States has an excuse for being broke. I don't really care where you're from, where you're starting at, what your situation is. Yeah, we all have different situations starting out. We all have different unique talents and abilities. But at the end of the day, like this is the time to be alive where anyone can do anything. I mean, you didn't grow up, in some oppressive country that doesn't allow you to do anything. You didn't grow up 500 years ago where, you're a slave. It's like, dude, we all have the opportunity to do something in America, at least. So to that end, I would pick something that, number one, you are passionate about and you think could be a good fit for you. So whether that's real estate, whether that's being a content creator, whether that's being a salesperson, whether that, like, there's so many ways to make freaking money, right? But like, if you're trying to get rich, the only way to get rich is to figure out how to make big chunks of money. So like, if you're going to go work at a W-2 that makes $50K a year, there's nothing wrong with that if you want that to be like your steady income, but you're going to have to figure out something else on top of that that's going to make money. Right. So what I always tell people is like, we have a framework called make, manage, multiply. And so what we teach at Wealthy Investor is like during the make stage, what you have to do is make 250K in one thing. All right. Because too many people are like, oh, well, should I get an Airbnb? Should I just wholesale? Should I flip? Should I do some storage? And I'm like, so what have you done again? Well, just pick one, right? To me, flipping and wholesaling are the easiest ones to get to 250. It's not rentals. It's not commercial. Like anyone can get started flipping and wholesaling right now. And anyone can make 250 by yourself right now. You don't need an employee. You don't need, an office. You don't need anything. Just go out and hustle and get deals. So, make is 250. The second stage is manage. Okay. So this is when you go from guy with a skill that's high paying to now business owner. Now I need to manage people and take this skill and teach it to my employees and have them do it for me. And so during the managed stage, I don't believe you've crossed that stage until you get to $1 million. Okay. So until then, let's just say you pick flipping houses. Cool. You did it on your own. You made 250. Now we're trying to go build a 7-figure business. We're going to go hire a sales guy, a marketing guy, whatever, right? Cool. You learn a whole new skill set because now you still know how to run your ARVs. You still know how to hire contractors and raise money, but you don't know how to hire people or manage them or keep them accountable or do KPIs. You don't know any of the organizational things that you wouldn't learn until you reach this stage. Nor is it relevant in the make stage. Your KPIs don't matter when you're just hustling. So, and too many people get caught up on that. Like, well, freaking, what about my LLC? And should I get this spreadsheet? I'm like, bro, get a deal. Yeah. I don't care. So then you go to the managed stage. You make $1 million. Now you go to the multiply stage. And the multiply stage is where, if make is when you turn into a hustler guy who's making money, manage as a business owner, then multiply is investor. This is when you now have a business that's spitting off cash. And so how do you multiply the cash? Well, there's multiple things you could do. You could reinvest back into the business and double down and turn into a multi-7-figure business. Option 2 is, you keep the business running and growing, organically. You don't throw fire on it, and you start using that capital to buy real estate or whatever, right? Start investing it into whatever your investment vehicle is. Because the way that I'm using real estate right now in this example is not an investment. It's a job. It's just making you money.
Sure.
Right. So now you start buying rentals. And this is why I always tell our students, I'm like, guys, do not buy a rental if you are broke. What's the point? It's not going to change your life. Flip or wholesale it. That's going to change your life. $20,000 in your pocket is life-changing. Owning one rental that breaks even is not life-changing. It's nothing. So people used to always ask me that too. They're like, bro, why are you keeping some of these flips when I was first starting out? I flipped probably 60 homes before I bought a rental. And I was like, because I want the 20, 30K and I want to buy another flip that makes me 20, 30K. And if I do that 3 times over each year, that's 90K. No rental's paying me 90K, But if I can build this company up, I'll buy rentals way down the road. This is a long game, So if I can build this business the right way, rentals will be easy. So anyways, you get to the multiply stage, you can start buying rentals, you can reinvest in the business, or, like most shiny object entrepreneurs, you can start a new business. At that point, you've successfully built a 7-figure business. You've now earned the right to try and use those same skills in a different product. Most people, once again, they're in the make stage. They're like, I want a rental. I want a second business. I want to do and I'm like, that's why you don't get anywhere.
That's why, yeah.
So
when do you double down and build the other businesses? Because you have a lot, I have a lot.
Yeah.
So are we just the exception?
Well, I think, man, there's so many schools of thought here. So a guy whatever, Hormozy, he's been on my podcast and spoken at the events too. And he's talked about it a lot of just do one thing for 10 years and just don't do anything else. Right. And it's true. If I only focused on flipping and I did nothing else, my flipping business would be bigger than it currently is. But as an entrepreneur, you also start to realize there are ceilings to the scale at which you can reach. There's only so big you can make a house flipping business. Yeah. I did 100 a year for 5-6 years straight. It's do I want to do 1,000? No, I'm not doing 1,000 flips. It sounds terrible. No, nor is it very scalable, right? We saw what happened with Zillow and Open Door. When you try to scale a house flipping business, it's it just breaks. It was never meant to do that. But when you try to scale tech, it's very seamless. Yeah. It's you build the tech once, every customer you add literally adds no new complexity. Yep. It's just recurring. And so I started to understand that and I was like, wow, okay, there's different levels to scale in different industries. And so it's content, massive scale, education, massive scale, tech, massive scale. Real estate has scale in syndication and other stuff, but not flips and wholesales. And so it doesn't mean flipping and wholesaling is bad. It just means back when I was couch flipping, there was a cap to what flipping couches could do. It was I could make 100, maybe 200, but that's it. Flipping houses, maybe I could make, 10 to 20 million in gross revenue if I really, went all in on it. But that is the cap, right? In education, who are the guys? I mean, Tony Robbins and Cardone, these guys make $100 million plus a year in educate. Okay. So, I mean, that cap's bigger than flipping. What do the tech guys make? I mean, they make billions. So, you start to notice that each industry has a cap. And so as an entrepreneur, you have a choice. You can continue in your niche, which, if you're in a lower tiered niche that has a lower cap, you will inevitably, if you're good, hit the cap. But could you be building towards something that's much more scalable? And you have to decide that, I would say, this is my advice. If you're just starting out, right, and you don't have all the things you want in life yet, you're better off doing one thing. And that's what I did. I just scaled my house flipping company, built it to 7 figures, the multiple 7 figures, and I only focused on that. Then once I was like good, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go devote my time to social media. This is the next big thing. And so I actually like made less money flipping houses because now you just took the main cog out of it.
Yep.
Who's now going to go spend his time over here, which is not going to make anything starting out, and you have no YouTube subscribers. It's hard to make money, but if you believe in it and you believe in the scale and what it's going to become, then it's a far better choice 5 years from now. This is what I did. But
what about somebody who's right now listening to this? Again, maybe they're young and broke, or maybe they're old and broke. And they're saying,
so they're broke.
Yeah, they're broke. Do they go flip houses, start a business, social media star? If you had to pick one of those 3.
I flip houses.
Would you? Why?
Yeah. I think anyone can flip houses. I meet the dumbest people in the world who are successful flipping. Seriously, I'm just like, man, dude, this guy makes a couple $100,000 a year. Like anyone can do it.
It is a fairly complex free, like not completely free, but limited complex.
Well, the thing with house flipping too is like it doesn't change. Yeah. It's like, the market changed a little bit, but like, dude, I mean, analyzing a deal is the same as it was 10 years ago when I started to what it is today. Nothing has changed. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about like learning this new skill set. And it's going to be around forever. Yep. Real estate will be there forever. The problem with social media is like, one, it's harder. Yep. It is harder to stand out on social media than it is to become a house flipper. 2, it changes nonstop. Yep. It's like freaking Threads came out 2 days ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, another thing. Like, what am I doing now? And I'm like, I'm the social media guru. I have to freaking figure this out for everyone, Yep. Like, it's so funny, dude. Within 12 hours, I just posted my first thread. And people are like, Ryan, what are you and your team doing to capitalize on Threads? What's the plan? What are you guys talking about behind the scenes? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have no data. It's just started 12 hours ago. Yeah. What do you mean? What's the plan?
You're in charge, man. You gotta tell us what to do.
Yeah. I'm like, the plan is I'm going to like make some, I don't even know what they call them, threads.
Yeah. I don't know either.
And
post thread.
Whatever. I'll see how they go.
Yeah.
So, but no, like,
which is refreshing to hear that you don't have it all figured out.
Heck no, dude. It's literally all testing all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll have great months of social media and get freaking 100 million views. And I'll be like, the next month it gets 10 million views. And you're like, what happened? Why did this month suck? Yeah. It's just like, it's so random. Yeah. So social media is hard that way. And also too, social media is not guaranteed to monetize. It's only as monetizable as you are as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So, for these people who have no entrepreneurial skills, even if you do build a following, you're still probably not making money because you don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's always blows my mind about like TikTok. A lot of TikTok creators where they're really clever people and they have really clever things they do, right? And you're like, oh, that's so funny. And then you're like, wait, how are you making any money? And they're not.
They're not.
It's just a hobby for them that they spend their full-time life doing.
Well, they just have never, like, getting attention is a skill.
Yep.
And monetizing is a skill.
100%.
That's what I tell our clients at Pineda Media. I'm like, guys, okay, there's 2 types of people right now. There is the pure content creator, AKA the Mr. Beast when he was first starting. Yep. And then there's the pure entrepreneur, AKA everyone who's been on the Bigger Pockets podcast who you've never heard of.
Yep.
Right? So like these guys are really good at business. Yep. They're terrible at everything else. So the most impressive people are those who can combine them.
Yeah.
You, me, Hormozy, Grant, Patrick Bet-David, because they've figured out how to be a content creator while also being a great entrepreneur. Yeah. Now, if you can mash those together, it's the cheat code. There's literally no better cheat code in business. Elon is the same thing.
Yeah.
Elon literally he bought a social media company to do this. Okay. Like, so
it's a baller move right there.
Yeah. He knows.
Yep.
They all know. Mark Cuban knows. That's why he went on TV. Like ever since Shark Tank, Mark Cuban wasn't who he was. He's from the old social media and now he's on the new social media. Yep. Kevin O'Leary's the same way. All these TV guys are now merging to social media, because they know they need it. And so it's like, yes, if you merge it, you have the cheat code.
All right, repeat after me and then fill in the blank.
Okay.
The key to social media success is blank.
The key to social media success is consistency. At the end of the day, I was actually sitting in Grant Cardone's office a month ago, and he was interviewing me on his show, and he goes, "Hey, dude, so I got to say, I saw you a couple years ago," and I'm doing not a good accent, but his accent is like, I saw you a couple of years ago, and you had your different colored hair and all this stuff. And, I saw one of your videos and I was like, all right, I like what that guy's saying, And then I saw it again. Then I saw it again, and it kept popping up on my feed. And, I saw it for months and months and months. He's like, and I knew you were going to be successful. You know why? Because you're consistent. He was like, too many people, when it comes to social media or anything in life, they go really hard at something for a little bit and then they stop. And he's like, you just have been consistent. Like, there's not a week that goes by I don't see you. And it's true. Like, in the last 3 years since I've been doing social media heavily, I've not missed a week. Yeah. Like, content goes out every freaking day, And if I know I'm going to be gone for a week, I film double the week before. So you would never even know. And so consistency is the key to winning. And it sucks for people to hear that because they're like, well, isn't there like a trick to go viral with ChatGPT or whatever the case is? And I'm like, sure, those are tools you can use to help come up with ideas and stuff, but you still got to make the videos every day. Yeah. Like, if you don't release content every day, what are you doing, right? If you're in a real estate business and you're not talking to sellers every day, how good's the business going to do?
Yeah, agreed.
Right? If you're in any industry, if you're a sales guy and you don't talk to a lead for a week, are you going to close? And that's a realtor's problem. Realtor's problem is they get some leads and then they go and show them, and then the pipeline is dry. So like, we are just constantly making content. And the cool thing is when you're constantly making content, you get data on what's working, what's not working. Also, you get repetition. So for me, I become a pretty good speaker just offhand. I have no preparation for anything I do. I could walk on stage, tomorrow and not have a clue what I'm saying.
You probably will.
I don't want to say I'm going to, but there's a likelihood that that's what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's just the plan is let's roll. Like, that's the plan. Yeah. But it only becomes with repetition.
Yeah, you did that because you did it so many times. I'm the same way. Yeah, you do something 1,000 times, you're going to be okay at it. Yeah. Hopefully. Let's move on to, we got 3 segments into every show. All right. This one's called the 3-2-1 pivot. So the idea of a pivot being you're moving one direction, something happens, you pivot another direction. So we're going to start with 3 pivot books that you've read in your life that have changed the direction of your life.
Dang, dude, that's a hard question. So...
Yeah, 3 books.
Repeat the question again.
3 books that have changed the direction of your life in some way.
3 books that have changed the direction of my life. Okay, so this one's a gimme because I told you on my show, but your book.
Woohoo! Okay? That's why I asked it. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I know. It was all a game. But yeah, your book.
The No and Low Money Down.
No and Low Money Down was literally how I got started in house flipping because I didn't know where I was going to get the money, all the stuff. I read it in 2014, and I was like, wow, okay, and then boom. I'm a real estate investor. So shout out to your book.
Thank you.
None of your other books did that for me. So
they're all terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't read
the other books, I don't know how they did, but that book, life-changing, pivot changing. Second book. Let me think of a second good book I read.
You can't say the Bible.
I know. That's the daily read. So it's not like I am pivoting every day. Maybe that's why I pivot so much, because I read the Bible every day. Man, I want to sound like very smart and life-changing, but
can I throw a suggestion for you that you told me, and maybe this is not one of your pivot
maybe
books.
I forgot. Tell me.
You suggested the book to me, I think it was The God I Never Knew.
Oh yeah.
Would you call that a pivot book?
Oh, for sure.
Because you told me it changed your life.
Yeah, it was.
That's why I bring that up.
Yeah. You know what's, I'm glad you brought that up. My wife is actually reading that right now. So I read that book about faith, and it was this, we're talking about faith now. So like, I grew up as a Christian in a Baptist church and everything else. And so, it's very like conservative and proper and, it's all good. And then, I experienced a Pentecostal church and a charismatic church, and it was weird. It was really weird, but it didn't feel weird because of everything leading up to. In fact, it felt right. And I was like, this is so weird that like, I don't feel weird by this. And so, I prayed. I was like, God, I don't know what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing, but I want it. And I ended up going to my friends and asking them all these questions. I was like, guys, have you ever seen like miracles? Do you speak in tongues? Like, what is going on here? And they're like, yeah. I was like, what? Like, why have you never told me about this? This is crazy. And they're like, we should have a meeting. I was like, okay. So, I meet with a couple of pastors and stuff, and they recommend books. And so that was one of the first books I got recommended, and I read it, and I was like, wow, this has like been in the Bible the whole time. I don't know why it gets glossed over, or why I never saw it this way, or why I had this like preconceived belief that like this stuff had stopped, but it drastically changed everything. And then I ended up reading like 10 other books thereafter. I'm like, all right, that was good. But let me read what he says, and let me read the counter arguments, and let me read this. And then by the end of it, I felt like the guy, I forgot whatever that movie was where he was an atheist and he was trying to disprove Christianity, and then he became a Christian. I forgot what it's called, but that's what I felt like.
The Case for Christ? Case
for Christ. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. That's what I felt like. I was like, okay, hold on. I've never believed this stuff, but and I've been in the church forever. And then, that book, that was a huge pivot moment for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it made a little impact. I'm not as far down there as you are probably, but it definitely moved me more in that direction. So
and I think for me too, it's what sparked Wealthy Kingdom starting. It's what sparked me being way more bold on social media in faith, and like just being, not caring what ends up happening from it. So that's a great, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. Yeah. So we'll go with that as book number 2. Book number 3, let's say, I was going to say something simple like Atomic Habits, but I've always been very good habits and discipline. So like, it was just like
reinforcement.
Yeah. I was like, wow, okay, I do those things. That's cool. Like, I'm going to actually take this more serious now. A good book I read, I'll bring this up, was a book called Ready, Fire, Aim. And it talks about the path to going to 100 million. And, for me, you first want to make 100,000, then 1 million, 10 million. So now it's like, all right, how do we get to 100 million? And, not 100 million in real estate, but like $100 million revenue business, And he talks about all the problems that go with each stage. He's like, when you're from 1 million to 10 million, these are the problems. I was like, oh my gosh, these are the problems. I can't. This is exactly what is happening to me. And I did not understand why.
Okay, I'm buying that book today.
Oh yeah, dude, it's good. And then the next, he's like, all right, so this is the 10 to, I think 50 million or maybe 100 million. But he's like, these are the new problems you're about to encounter. And that's the stage we're in. And I'm like, wow, like I'm already kind of going through something. I get it. And it's actually making me want to reread it again. But it's not like, I don't know that I did any kind of like massive, I did. I definitely went to the team. I was like, guys, this is why we're experiencing this. This is how we got to fix it. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to focus on. And yeah, that book made me think differently. And then it also like kind of opened my eyes to like, yeah, the path to 100 million isn't like crazy.
Yeah.
You just need these things for it to happen.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. All right. I love getting good book recommendations, so I'll get that one.
Cool.
All right, so this is a 3-2-1 pivot. So the first one was 3 books, next one's 2 people, and then 1 quote. So 2 people that have made a pivot on your life, that made your life move in a new direction.
2 people that have made a big pivot. Do they have to like have been personal, or could I have like watched a YouTube like?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah,
whatever. Okay, so taking Jesus out of it, obviously. 2 normal people. You know what sucks is like whenever I get put on the spot like this, I don't do a lot of reflecting. That I've learned that about my life. Like I read the book and then it's like gone. I'm just like it absorbed into my DNA, whatever it needed to, and then I don't even remember how it got there.
Yeah.
So like so much of the wisdom and things I've learned over the years, I don't even remember how I got it, but I'll say this. So one guy, I was actually with him just now. So he is top of mind, but I can for sure say he's affected me a lot, was my business coach, Gary Harper.
Okay.
And so He's actually a partner with us now. He runs one of our coaching programs called Wealthy Business. And so I hired him at the beginning of 2020. And literally he turned me from like a guy who was hustling into a legitimate business person who
That's
could,
cool.
like, I never had built an organizational chart. I didn't know what SOP stood for. And I had made millions.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't know anything because I was a baseball player. I was just like, dude, let's just get deals and make money. He's like, bro, have you ever done a pro forma? Have you ever done a budget? Have you ever like, do you have any kind of like hiring thing, or you just bring them off the street and you just, I was like, we don't have any of that. So he helped me legitimize that. And that is what actually allowed us to open so many more businesses, because it was like very plug and play with his system. And so for now to be a partner, and he's actually one of our board members for Wealthy Kingdom on the nonprofit side. So to have somebody in my corner who's a believer, but also like a business coach who knows way more than me, you know, on business in general, right? Like, it's amazing. So he's one. Second one, you know, another person who's made a massive impact. It's hard to say, man, because you like have different seasons in your life. So I could be like, yeah, I mean, when I was playing baseball, this guy was super impactful. You know, I was first starting flipping houses, you were super impactul.
We should just go with me then.
We should just go Brandon. You know, when I was like starting social media, you know, there were social media guys. So it's really hard to say.
Who do you look up to in the social media space right now? Like, who's doing it? Who's doing an amazing job of what you're trying to do better of? Because I look at you and I'm like, you're doing an amazing, like, you are the guy we look to. One of the people that we look to is like an amazing job at social media. So who do you look to as doing an amazing job?
I like what Steven from Diary of a CEO is doing.
Oh, God, he kills it. He's so good.
Everything he's doing is just really, really good.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise why he's blown up. I think on a short form side and like shorter videos, Hormozy obviously kills it. So he's doing great. Cody Sanchez, you know, they're the hybrids I'm talking about.
Yep.
Where they're amazing business people, but their production value and their content is just so good.
Yeah.
So, and I think too, I think about this a lot. Well, I don't think about it a lot, but they're further along in their business journey than I am. And so like, they just know more, and you can't trade experience for anything else. Like I can learn from them, but until I actually do it, you know, it's hard to have authority on it. Plus like I can only have authority on what I've accomplished. And, you know, they've been through just a lot more in business. Cause like even in my business career, I mean, I retired from baseball in 2017. So I've truly only been in business for 6 years. Like that's what I've really actually focused in business. And then when you see guys like Patrick Bet-David who've been doing it since he was like 18 years, the dude's, you know, been in business for 30 years. I'm like, I've been in business for 6.
Yeah.
You know, a guy like Cardone's been in business for 40 years. And you're like, yeah, it's kind of hard. But like, so, you know, I don't get into comparison game. Like I'm just like very aware of my position and where I stand in like the totem pole of just like, I just, you know, like I have more experience than 99.9% of people. But if I'm looking at the guys I look up to, it's not that I'm behind or I'm slower or I'm not as smart. It's just time. They just have more hours in it. Like there's nothing you can do about that other than
such a good point.
Just keep going.
And it makes me wonder where guys like you, I mean, I've told numerous people this, and I'll say it again now, and I always use an example actually. I said like, the billionaires today are the tech founders of 20 years ago. The billionaires of 20 years from now are the social media / business people of today. And I say like Pineda, like Hormozy, like these are the guys that if you can get that today, like, so, you know, Patrick Bet-David and all, they didn't have what we have today, the massive level. No, they're going to be the trillionaires of tomorrow, right? Yeah. But it's fascinating to see like that group that you named and others where they'll be 20 years from now.
You know, 10. I'll just say like now that I'm thinking about it and talking through it, because I didn't want to just give a first answer, I got to give a lot of respect to Cardone. Mm-hmm. You know, his 10X event in 2018 changed my trajectory massively because I'd never been to an event. That was my first ever business conference. And I remember they're like, I had heard him on the podcast and it just happened to be in Vegas. I was like, all right, let's go to this. And literally from that, I ended up buying a bunch of stuff. I bought my first guru stuff, but that led me to writing my first book, creating my first course, holding my first event. I would have never did any of that stuff. And right now that is my life now.
Yeah.
Right. So like I give credit to Grant for that. And I actually, this is crazy. Honestly, like I hate being like a fanboy of you because we're friends and like I consider us peers. So like it really is full circle to like have you speaking at WealthCon and then talking about, what it was like 10 years ago, first reading your book. Right. So it's like a cool full circle moment, but it was full circle for me and Cardone because I went to his thing in 2018. I had heard him on the podcast and I was like, dude, this guy is like killing it in real estate, changing lives. Like regardless of what you think about him, he's doing good things. So, and he changed my life. So that's all I can say. Right. But I ended up going to 10X again this last year because it was back in Vegas. But this time, Grant and I are friends. And so I remember in 2018, just looking at the stadium, I was like, one day I'm going to throw an event like this. That was in 2018. Didn't have a coaching, didn't have anything. I was just like, I know I've got what it takes to do something like this. So then I go to his event again. Now we're friends and talking with him and the team. And they're like, dude, come backstage with us. Like we got T-Pain in the back. Like it's going to be tight. And I'm like, all right. So we go backstage and like, everybody's like, what's going on? Oh, and then whatever. Right. So then we're just hanging out and T-Pain freaking is like right there and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is like full circle of like 5 years later, I'm back in Vegas, but now I'm backstage and Grant and I have done a bunch of stuff together. He wants to do deals together. I'm filming for his TV show. I'm actually going next week to finish filming. And it's just crazy, dude. Like, I'm just like, wow. It only took 5 years to like, kind of like reach the quote unquote top of like being next firsthand.
That's so cool.
But he was in here for a whole day. We were filming his TV show, like literally just right here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He paved the way for definitely a lot of us is like what's possible, like just that bigger thinking. So love it. Well, on that note, I don't know why it's on that note. One quote that's made a big impact on your life, like a pivot quote. You may not have one off the top of your head, but sometimes people have those life quotes that resonate.
Well, it's funny. I was making a presentation for WealthCon tomorrow. And so I literally got 5 quotes. So I could just give you one of the quotes I got. There was a quote in there from Michael Jordan that was pretty good, where he was basically like, I can accept failure. What I cannot accept is not trying. And that's the way I've always thought about it. I was like, the regret I would have not attempting something big would far outweigh anything else. So like, I'm a gunslinger at heart. So like, I'm going to be like, this has a chance to go big. Let's do it. And if I fall on my face, I fall on my face and we'll pick up the pieces where they may, but at least I know. And I've never once had to live with regret of like, oh man, I wonder what would happen if I would have did that. And that's what was happening when I first started flipping houses. And I just didn't realize it was, I had to max out all my credit cards to do it. And my mom, who was a realtor, was like, that's such a bad idea. You're going to ruin your future. That neighborhood is really bad. And I was like, Mom, I literally have nothing to lose. Like I'm broke. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like I'll go bankrupt and I'll whatever. I'm still broke. Yeah. I'm still broke, bankrupt, or I'm still broke, not bankrupt. Like what's the difference? And that was my mindset. I was like, I have to at least try. And if it works, great. And it did. What
have you done recently? A thing you've done in your life in the last year that's given you a better life? Just any tactical thing or anything you've recently done?
What have I done this year that's given me a better life? This is kind of dumb, but since we moved into the new house, like I have a gym in the house and I have a golf simulator in the house. And like, I just have this whole quicker routine where it's like, I do my morning routine, prayer, Bible, then I just walk downstairs, I get my workout in, then I walk to the simulator, get my practice in for golf. And so what used to take me, call it 3 hours, takes me 2.
Dude, that's awesome.
And so like,
gym.
yeah, that's
I
like,
need a gym.
it's it's so efficient. And like my life is way better not having to drive and go to all these different spots.
Yeah. I love it. Love it. That's not a dumb question. I'm gonna answer. Oh, that's perfect. I love the tactical ones that are just like very like real. All right. What are you excited about right now? And then where do people find you?
WealthCon, dude. That's what we're excited about.
That's
It's
what we're excited
WealthCon
about.
week. I mean, by the time this airs, it'll be gone.
But there'll be another one.
There'll be another one next week or next quarter.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's our event we hold every quarter. Over 1,000 people come attend it each and every quarter. And it's here in Las Vegas. By the time this airs, I think it's going to be October 5th and 6th or something. October 4th or 5th. Just wealthcon.org is how you're going to find it. And dude, I love event week. Like, even though I'm an introvert at heart, I love just meeting these people, learning, like the speakers, like you're speaking at this one, like, you know, behind the stage, all the things that happen. These events like fire me up. People were like, why do you throw a freaking massive event every quarter? I'm like, because freaking we can, and it's tight.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And where do people find you? Where do you want them to follow you at? Threads.
Find me on Threads, Twitter, you know, everything. No, honestly, the best thing to do is just, I'd go to wealthyway.com.
Okay.
You can get all the things we've talked about on the show, like with the book, with free resources and all this stuff.
If you buy one house every year, after year 5, you just sell the one you bought 5 years ago, and now you make $100,000 a year forever. But I worry what happens when the market shifts dramatically, and a bunch of us start going bankrupt.